2 cents short of $1, the show where we give our 2 cents and keep it 100. We're your hosts. That's Motiz, and I'm Rue. So today I want to talk about some boxing news. I want to actually start with Jaron Ennis, who had his Philly homecoming at the Wells Fargo Arena versus David Aonian. Ended in a 5th round stoppage or ring time decision, whatever it was, short and sweet. But what do you think of the performance Jaron Ennis put on in front of his home crowd?
I think he put on a great performance, to be honest. I know some people have some mixed reviews on his performance, holding him to a very high standard. Some people say he got touched up a bit, but I think based off of his game plan to try to, go out and get him out of there from jump, take one to give one. I think he ultimately, got him out in, maybe not in a KO fashion compared to Crawford, like how some people was kind of measuring them to using that as a measuring stick, but to break his ribs and break his jaws that's good enough for me, man. That was crazy. So
yeah. And I mean, it ended after the 5th round, right? So if it did go a 6th round, we could have potentially sort of knocked out that round. We could have potentially sort of knocked out later in the fight. I don't think it really mattered when it happened. I know that, obviously styles make fights, not a triangle theory, right? So if Crawford knocks him out in 6 rounds and Boots knocks him out in 5 rounds, it doesn't make Boots better than Crawford, vice versa. You know what I mean? So
would you say like, because I think, because I agree with you, right? It doesn't necessarily make one better than the other. But since we're on this specific topic, which performance, and you can first tell me how did you feel about Boots' performance, but then follow that by letting me know who do you think had the better performance between Crawford and Boots?
Yeah. So I thought it was a really good performance. Like you said, the mentality was like take one to give one. But actually, I really think it was just no respect. He had no respect for David Aonian. I don't care what you do because you can't impact me, and I'm gonna just keep coming towards you all night. I'm gonna try to excite the fans. There was a moment in the fight where David Aonian wasn't too far from Boots, and Boots turned around to talk to the camera. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just a lack of respect in a showmanship kind of way, though. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure he respected him but I'm saying, like, as a showman, you know what I'm saying? He's like, yo, you can't do nothing with me, so I'm gonna do all these things. I'm gonna just walk you down all night. And definitely, it's a couple times, more than a couple times, where I seen Boots get his head snapped back from, David Aonian was hitting him. But I think what people maybe have to say at this point is David Aonian, even though we don't know him that well, and I don't think too many people are that familiar with his work, he's not trash, right? He just fought 2 elite boxers, right? But I'll say this, he touched Boots up some, he touched Crawford up some too. If you go back and look, he probably even won a round versus Crawford, which he won no rounds in this Boots fight.
Yep.
He may have won a round against Crawford, you know what I'm saying? But like I said, and I'll answer your second question shortly, but like I said, just because this happened in this fight, that happened in that fight, that says nothing about Boots Crawford.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go out and say just more entertaining or impressive was your word?
Yeah, which one was more impressive? Which one was a more impressive stoppage to you?
I'm going to go out and I'm going to say the Boots stoppage was more impressive to me. And but I think it just comes with the territory, and I'm going to tell you why. A lot of people are saying, oh, similarities, Boots, Terrence, Crawford, stupid little net. Stupid little net flying past me, just blowing my mind. But a lot of people are saying similarities. Boots fights like Crawford. They do this. They both switch hit. If you really look at them, in my personal opinion, they do not fight alike. They do not fight alike. You know what I'm saying? Yes, they both can go orthodox to southpaw to orthodox. But from what I've seen from Terrence Crawford, especially of late, Terrence, except for the Errol Spence fight, he starts orthodox. Things get a little tricky, a little rough, a little close. He will go to southpaw where he's just naturally more comfortable.
Right.
Boots is switching back and forth in the middle of the fight after exchanges much more frequently. Like maybe earlier in Crawford's career, but as of late, Crawford is not switching back and forth in the middle of rounds.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I think Crawford is better in southpaw, and I think Boots is actually better in orthodox. But just the style itself, like Crawford is very patient, right? Kind of lets the fight come to him. But every time you make a mistake, he's going to take advantage of that, counter punches in angles. He's punching while you're punching. Where Boots, and maybe it's because of the competition he's fought so far, or lack thereof per se,
Okay.
Boots has had the opportunity to just be super aggressive all his fights, just completely walk people down. He hasn't really had to be patient and just work and counter and strategize to the efforts that Crawford has. So from what I've seen so far, I don't think they fight alike. I think their styles are completely opposite. How about you?
For me, that's a good point about their styles, because I think people jump to, because they're switch hitters, they fight alike. But when you look at, how their style stylistically, especially in the pocket, going to the body versus kind of like, okay, and you made a good point, because I do 100% agree with you. I think Boots is the better switch hitter in comparison to Bud Crawford, because Bud Crawford is usually more comfortable in one style and he stays in that style for majority of the duration of the fight once he's in kind of a little bit of a hiccup. In terms of the better performance, to play devil's advocate, I think I'm going to go with Crawford.
Okay.
I think the way Crawford laid him flat out,
Mm-hmm.
just with the overhand punch, I think that was, and had him out on his eyes rolled in the back of his head. I think that one was more impressive, because it was like, it wasn't a moment for him to really think like, do I want to go on there and do? Of course, Boots destroyed his body, right? Broke ribs, broken jaw, but push come to shove, life on the line, of course, health on the line, he would have went back out there. You know what I mean? And he probably could have, pulled out a couple more rounds. Whereas with, Terrence Crawford, yeah, he got touched up. I don't think he got touched up in the same fashion like Boots did. And I also felt like, he threw less punches, especially in the beginning, and ultimately just picked his shot and just got him out of there where he couldn't defend himself. So I'm going to go with Terrence Crawford.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I think it can go either way. You know what I'm saying? You can never deny someone being knocked cold out, right? You can never deny that. I just thought, I think Boots's game plan was just all offense, no defense.
Yeah.
And that makes it entertaining, and I think it's impressive. Because like I said, he was getting hit, and I don't, like I said, I'm not too familiar with all of David Avenesian's work, but boxing, one punch can change anything. So for him to say whatever, hit me with whatever you got, you can't do nothing. Throw the kitchen sink, to me, that was impressive for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a fact.
But that's just my personal opinion. Yeah, but
I was gonna say too, like, since we're in this topic of Boots kind of just not respecting his opponent's power, because it's not the only fight that he's done this to. Do you think if he matched up with even like a Stanionis, would he be reluctant to take punches like that? And do you think that shift in style will ultimately start affecting his outcomes? And when I say outcomes, he won't get as many knockouts, and maybe he doesn't. Or is it the opposite, where he feels like, he's willing to take one against fighters like Stanionis, and that can lead him into trouble? Or do you think he'll always rise above that?
He's not gonna fight Stanionis in the same fashion. He's not gonna be as willing to take one. Stanionis is more of a dangerous fighter, and what I'm basing that off of is when he fought Roman Villa, who we know has some pop, right? Yes, Boots got hit a little bit in that fight, but it wasn't in this fashion, right? He wasn't just there like, hit me, I don't care. You know what I'm saying? It was more so moving his feet, head movement. And ultimately, I think that's what really got Villa hurt. It was the shots he didn't see coming. And that's because Boots was a little bit more patient in there, throwing from some angles, a lot of movement. But that's because he understood the power. I think in his mind, it's like, this guy could not hurt me. And that's why I'm going to fight him this way. So I don't think he would fight Stanionis this way. I don't think he would fight Crawford that way. Virgil Ortiz, you know what I'm saying? So I think Ennis is intelligent enough to kind of assess, or make, a credible judgment against what's on the other end. You can always be wrong, right? Look at Tony Harrison, Charlo too. When Tony was, fronting on Charlo, like, you can't hurt me, and eventually got hurt. So that can happen to anybody. One punch can change any fight. So it can happen to Boots too. But I think, knowing the fighters on the other end, I think he would change up his game plan a little bit.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. One thing I noticed about Boots, so I want to ask you about this. Pre-fight weigh-in, Boots, to me, yes, he rehydrated for the fight, but pre-fight, he looked a little drained. Maybe a little more drained than the previous fights that we've seen him. Am I making too much of that? Did you kind of notice it as well? I understand he's young, but did he look a little drained for 47 at the weigh-ins?
I would have to agree with you. I think so. And there's another fight prior to this where he kind of looked the same way, but he's been in recent fights he didn't really look at. But that last fight, you can see it, like when your skull is kind of sunken in that way, it starts to kind of beg the question, are you are you too big for that weight class? And I think we all can agree Boots is pretty big for 147. So now it kind of starts to make you think, how long will he be at 147 pounds? You know, will he have enough time to collect all the belts, or will he move up to 154 sooner than expected? So
Yeah. Because he's young, he can kind of get away with this probably for a little bit longer. Think about it. Even Errol Spence, who was 33 going into the Crawford fight, who's been complaining for years, can still make it. I think Boots being 26 or 27, whatever he is, I think he can put a little bit more of strain on his body to continue to make this, let's say, for another couple years. Is Barrios a champion right now?
yes, he holds a belt.
So Barrios, who's supposed to fight Manny Pacquiao, and I'm going to just assume right now that Barrios is going to win that fight. I could be wrong. I'll reassess it. Of course, Pacquiao's a legend, but Pacquiao's 45, right? So I'm going to assume Barrios is going to win that fight. If Boots could get a quick unify with Barrios, after that, Boots will have 2 titles. You can't tell me anything to convince me that Barrios can beat Boots. You know what I mean? So depending on how quick he can unify, just based on the level of opposition at welterweight, I think it can be like a Canelo situation where Canelo, as long as there's not promotional differences and stuff. Remember when Canelo unified 168 in like 1 year, 1 calendar year, basically? I think Boots can do that as long as the fights get made. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah, he probably could come in sweeping and, you know, make that fight happen. I think Barrios would be game. It's just whether or not his team around him will feel like he's game. And yeah, I think Boots, the time is now. He got to start, you know, looking to collect these belts, become undisputed, to elevate his credibility, and, you know, make more money in the future. Unless he's getting big names, but he's not getting big names, so he has to collect the belts ultimately.
Yes. So, of course, 54 is right there, right? But, you know, in respect to Boots, in all fairness to him, like, if I could make the weight, like, I don't need to be forced to move up. You know what I mean? I know the fights are there, though. Those fights that he covet and he's looking for based on the name and credibility, they're at 54. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, if I could make the weight, you know, and I know he wants the Crawford fight. I know he'll still take the Errol Spence fight. You got guys like Virgil Ortiz. There's just a lot of names up there at 54 for him to fight and get that recognition, right? But if he can make 47, how can you knock him? Be like, oh, all the competition is there, so you need to move. Like, what if guys move again? Do I have to rush? You know what I'm saying? So, in all fairness, I think he could just do what's best for him. You know what I mean? Even though the fights I want to see are at 54 too, but I want to see him and Stanionis. I want to see that one.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you.
Yeah.
At 147, unless you can't make the weight, and then, you know, got to do what's best for your career and your health. So